Who authorized the paint? I asked, keeping my tone even. My nephew, she chirped. He's got a contracting side hustle. No permit, no paperwork, just nephew. My blood pressure spiked, but I'd learned Laura thrived on conflict. So I smiled, said got it, and walked to my workshop. There I pulled out my folder, the one every landowner with an HOA neighbor needs. It held the property deed, zoning maps, tax records, and most crucially, utility blueprints from the Cold War era when this land hosted a military comms outpost. Beneath their shiny new parking lot ran my electrical bypass grid, still live, still mine. They had no idea. Over the next few days, I documented everything. Every car parked on my field, every board member giving tours, every balloon arch and signpost. They were prepping for a grand event, a re-election gala to crown Laura's leadership. The irony was delicious. They were celebrating community while trespassing on my land. Picture this: a community divided over the proper use of shared parking spaces, with one individual adamantly advocating for clear, painted lines to ensure fairness and organization. On the other side, the HOA board is resistant to change and believes that the current system is sufficient. Residents are on edge and the stakes are high. Just when it seems like a resolution might be reached, the power is abruptly cut mid-meeting, plunging the room into darkness and chaos. Homeowners associations, or HOAs, play a crucial role in many residential communities across the country. At their core, HOAs are organizations formed by homeowners to manage and maintain shared spaces and amenities within a neighborhood. Their primary purpose is to enhance property values and ensure a cohesive living environment by enforcing rules and regulations that promote community standards. They are responsible for maintaining common areas such as parks, swimming pools, and landscaping. They also oversee the enforcement of community guidelines, which can include everything from architectural standards to noise restrictions. These rules are designed to create a harmonious living experience for all residents, but they can sometimes lead to tension between homeowners and the HOA board. Common regulations enforced by HOAs often cover aspects like property appearance, landscaping choices, and even parking restrictions. For instance, many HOAs require homeowners to seek approval before making significant changes to their property, such as painting their house or installing a fence. While these rules aim to maintain a certain aesthetic and order, they can also feel restrictive to some homeowners who value personal expression. The power dynamics between homeowners and HOA boards can be complex. On one hand, the board is tasked with making decisions that benefit the community as a whole. On the other hand, homeowners may feel that their voices are not adequately heard, leading to frustration and conflict. The situation surrounding the painted parking lines in the community has become a focal point of tension between the HOA and individual homeowners. The HOA's decision to paint parking lines was rooted in a desire to create order and maximize the use of shared parking spaces. With an increasing number of vehicles in the neighborhood, the board believed that clearly defined lines would help prevent disputes over parking spots and ensure that everyone had access to adequate space. Their intention was to foster a sense of organization and fairness, but the execution sparked significant backlash. Spearheading the effort was Laura, the HOA board president, a woman with a clipboard always in hand and an unshakable sense of authority. "We must enforce consistency," she barked during the announcement. "Without clearly marked spaces, people park like it's a free-for-all. We can't allow chaos." On the other side of the debate stood David, a longtime resident known for his reasoned demeanor. He raised serious objections to the HOA's plan, arguing that the painted lines would restrict personal choice and limit the flexibility of parking arrangements. "We've always figured it out, neighbor to neighbor," David said during a community forum. "You're turning this into a parking police state. What happens when someone has a visitor or a contractor who needs extra space?" Laura rolled her eyes. That's exactly the kind of disorder we're trying to eliminate. David continued, expressing concerns that the lines would create an overly rigid environment, stifling the community's character and individuality. Additionally, he feared that the lines could lead to confusion and resentment among residents, particularly if someone parked outside the designated areas. The impact of this dispute rippled throughout the community. Homeowners found themselves divided, with some supporting the HOA's initiative for order and others siding with David, who championed personal freedom. This conflict not only strained relationships among neighbors but also led to heated discussions during HOA meetings, creating an atmosphere of tension and uncertainty. The atmosphere in the HOA meeting was thick with tension as residents gathered to discuss the contentious issue of painted parking lines. The room was filled with a mix of anxious homeowners and determined board members, each side bracing for a confrontation. As the meeting commenced, the air buzzed with anticipation, and it was clear that emotions were running high. The stakes felt monumental, and everyone knew that the outcome could significantly impact their community. Laura stood at the front of the room, gavel in hand, pounding the table. "Let's bring this meeting to order. We have a lot of ground to cover, and I expect civility." As the discussion unfolded, arguments began to escalate. Supporters of the painted lines passionately advocated for order and fairness, citing the growing number of vehicles and the chaos that ensued without clear guidelines. Conversely, David and his allies voiced concerns about personal freedoms and the potential for resentment among neighbors. "You're not listening," shouted a young mother named Melissa. "What if my kids' grandparents visit and have nowhere to park?" Laura didn't flinch. "Guests can walk from down the street. We're not running a hotel here." Voices grew louder and frustration mounted as each side struggled to make their points heard. The meeting, intended to foster collaboration, quickly devolved into a heated debate, with interruptions and raised voices becoming the norm. In a moment of desperation, David made a bold decision. As tensions reached a boiling point, he stood up and declared, "This isn't a meeting anymore. It's a power trip." Laura stands at the front, finger jabbing toward a blurry printout of a parking diagram. "We will not turn this into a free-for-all. This neighborhood needs structure, not your freestyle parking," one neighbor mutters under their breath. "More like dictatorship with painted lines." Another neighbor throws their hands up. "We just want to park without a measuring tape, Laura." David pushes back his chair and rises slowly. "You know what? I've had enough." Laura smirks, folding her arms. "Oh, David, are you going to start another speech about freedom? Maybe use interpretive dance this time?" David doesn't react. Instead, he reached for the switch on the wall and with a swift motion, cut the lights, plunging the room into darkness. Gasps filled the air as attendees were left in stunned silence, unsure of how to react. A chorus of confused voices rose in the dark. Laura fumbles for the table, voice spiking. "Who touched the lights? This is a formal meeting." David's voice floats from the shadows. "And now it's formally over." One neighbor from the corner starts snorting. "Honestly, this is the most peaceful this room has felt in weeks." "Shh. Maybe if we stay quiet, Laura will think we've all left." Laura slams her fist down. "I demand someone turn those lights back on. This is sabotage." David lets the word hang. "Funny, that's exactly how we felt about the parking lines." A beat. Someone claps. Then another. A few chuckles erupt. Then full-blown laughter in the dark. Laura growls into the chaos. "This is not over." David's smile is audible. "No, Laura. It's just beginning." Laura's shriek pierced the chaos. "This is an outrage. You're going to regret that stunt." The sudden power cut not only halted the meeting, but also symbolized the deep divide within the community, leaving everyone to grapple with the implications of this dramatic turn of events. The aftermath of the power cut during the HOA meeting sent shock waves through the community. As the lights flickered back on, the room was filled with a mix of disbelief and outrage. HOA members were visibly shaken, some expressing frustration at the disruption, while others were concerned about the implications of such drastic actions. Laura demanded that David be censured immediately. He should be fined and barred from all future meetings. That was sabotage. Homeowners who had been caught in the crossfire of the heated debate were left feeling unsettled, unsure of how to navigate the growing divide within their community. In the days following the incident, David faced significant backlash. Many residents viewed his actions as an extreme measure that undermined the democratic process of the HOA. Rumors circulated about potential repercussions, including the possibility of fines or even legal action from the board. Laura was relentless, vowing to restore order and calling an emergency session to discuss disciplinary actions. But David stood firm. People are tired of being dictated to by someone who thinks a clipboard gives her the right to run our lives, he said in a neighborhood email thread that quickly went viral. Recognizing the need for better communication and understanding, the HOA decided to hold a series of workshops aimed at fostering dialogue among residents. These sessions encourage open discussions about community values and governance, allowing homeowners to voice their concerns in a more constructive manner. And though Laura remained defiant, the tide of public opinion had shifted. She was no longer the unquestioned voice of order, but rather a symbol of how unchecked authority can fracture the very harmony it claims to uphold. One of the key takeaways from this situation is the importance of understanding homeowner rights in relation to HOA authority. While they are established to maintain order and enhance property values, it is crucial for residents to feel that their voices are heard and respected. This conflict underscores the need for a balance between enforcing community rules and allowing individual expression, highlighting that both sides must work together to foster a healthy living environment. Another significant lesson revolves around the importance of communication and conflict resolution in community settings. The escalation of tensions during the meeting could have been mitigated through open dialogue and a willingness to listen to differing perspectives. Effective communication can prevent misunderstandings and help build trust among residents and board members alike. By prioritizing transparency and collaboration, communities can create a more inclusive atmosphere where everyone feels valued, even when power struggles and dramatic lights-out protests are part of the journey. While the power cut incident highlighted deep-seated tensions, it also served as a catalyst for change, prompting the community to seek a more collaborative approach moving forward. And though Laura remained defiant in the days immediately following the debacle, calling David's actions anarchy and rallying her few remaining loyalists, her grip on the board began to slip. Complaints about her heavy-handed tactics poured in. A petition circulated demanding her resignation, citing a pattern of autocratic behavior and disregard for resident input. The fallout for Laura was swift and public. Within days of the power cut event, calls for her resignation flooded the HOA's inbox. Homeowners who had once been silent now spoke up, some recalling past run-ins with Laura's overreach, others demanding accountability for the hostile environment she had helped create. An emergency meeting was held, this time under heavy attendance, where Laura was formally suspended pending investigation. By the end of the month, she was voted off the board entirely. Stripped of her title and authority, Laura tried to mount a defense, claiming she had only acted in the best interest of the community. But her years of micromanagement and antagonism had left little goodwill. Her influence vanished overnight. As she packed up her files and stormed out of the final board meeting, she muttered, "They'll see. Without structure, it'll fall apart." But the community didn't crumble. Instead, it began to breathe again. Once feared and obeyed, Laura found herself shunned by neighbors who now walked past her home without a glance. She eventually put her house up for sale, citing a toxic environment. But the irony was lost on no one. Her name lingered in neighborhood lore, not as a leader, but as a cautionary tale of what happens when power is wielded without empathy. David, while initially criticized for his dramatic actions, emerged as an unlikely symbol of neighborhood resilience. He took no pride in cutting the power, but explained it as an act of last resort to jolt the community out of apathy. "I just wanted them to listen," he told a local reporter after the story made a splash on a community news site. Residents appreciated his candor and began to see him not as a rebel, but as someone who'd had the courage to challenge a broken system. He declined an offer to join the new board, preferring to remain a voice from the crowd, but helped launch a resident advisory council to ensure that no one would ever feel silenced again. Through compromise and open dialogue, the community slowly began to rebuild trust, proving that sometimes it takes a blackout to truly bring things to light. A year later, the neighborhood had transformed in ways no one expected. The rigid tone of HOA meetings was replaced with laughter, open floor discussions, and even the occasional potluck. The painted parking lines remained, but now they were accompanied by flexible visitor zones and a community-approved permit system. Residents had a say in every new rule, and the advisory council became a model for nearby communities facing similar struggles. Kids chalked art in their driveways without reprimand, residents painted their doors unique colors, and the oppressive tension that once blanketed the neighborhood gave way to a quiet joy. As for David, he became known affectionately as the light switch guy, often chuckling at the nickname while watching neighbors gather for Friday night movies in the park, an event that wouldn't have been possible under the old regime. Even Laura, now living a few blocks away, occasionally peeked in during her evening walks, shaking her head with begrudging awe at the thriving community she had once tried so hard to control. If this story moved, you don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful tales of resilience and justice. Your support allows us to keep delivering valuable insights and stories that inform and inspire people everywhere. Thank you for watching Work Story, and see you in the next one.